Good morning. I was asked to talk a little bit about the journey that we have done the last 8-9 years since I was appointed as the Chief Innovation Officer at DSM. Before I was appointed, we didn't have a Chief Innovation Officer. And in the beginning, I had to figure out what a Chief Innovation Officer was actually supposed to do. I was the first person in the chemical industry to be appointed in this job, and I even wasn't aware that I was going to be the Chief Innovation Officer because I was running our food business at that point in time. And indeed, DSM has a very strong history of making a strategy overhaul about every 5 years. We call that the corporate strategy dialogue. And I was working very hard on the food strategy at that point in time. And then at a certain point in time, our then CEO asked if I could come up. And he told me, you know, it's going very well with your CSD stream, your strategy stream for food, but there has been a corporate stream working on changing the company further, and we have decided that we are going to do more on innovation. And we have also decided that we need a Chief Innovation Officer. And we thought you would be the best person to do that. And I said, well, that is very kind of you, but I'm very happy in the food business and I have lots of plans. We just made plans for the next 5 years, so I'll think about it. And then he said, well, no is actually not an answer. So I took the job, and since then I've been working on it, and I would like to tell you a little bit about that journey. And in the beginning it felt a little bit like this. I really didn't know what a Chief Innovation Officer was supposed to do, but I think the most important thing that we started with is make a distinction, as Chris already said, between R&D and innovation. Lots of people confuse those things. But R&D is basically spending money to create knowledge and know-how. And innovation is taking that know-how and making money with it in the market. So selling profitable products or services. And indeed, I started alone, but I inherited a lot of parts that people thought that would belong to the portfolio of the Chief Innovation Officer. And I'll talk about these, because I think the good thing about that notion was that in the end, we ended up with a very comprehensive way of managing innovation. Every element that indeed some people call open innovation, but that term is going away because you basically need everything to do innovation, is now in our realm of steering the innovation in the company. And they gave me a controller, that's the guy in the back, to keep me straight. I got a budget for working on businesses that are outside the scope of the company. So that is the new business development part of what we do. And I'm also responsible for increasing the speed of innovation. And I think now we have built really a movement in the company. DSM was, before we started this journey, more an operational excellence type of company, doing a little bit better what we were doing before, very inside out. And I think we have moved to a very different type of company. For those of you who don't know DSM, it started as a coal mining company in 1902. And then we moved into commodity chemicals, specialty chemicals in the 70s, and now we call ourselves a life science and material science company. And that renewal of the company is now basically ingrained in the way of looking at it. Every 5 years we still do this strategy update, and we try to figure out what makes sense to keep and what is the direction we should go, and more it is driven by external factors. So we also now have adopted the sustainability approach. So we want to be a sustainable company, and for us that means really the triple P approach: people, planet, profit. So sustainable financially, but also trying to work on things that, if you put it simple, are either good for people or good for the planet. And we call those products People Plus or Eco Plus products. And the 4 themes that we use also for driving our innovation agenda are health and food and nutrition, and energy security, and what we call sustainable manufacturing. Basically driving the world towards a circular economy, going away from the linear approach, from taking stuff, making something out of it, and then disposing of it, to reusing everything and taking already at the design of products, that concept into account. So let's talk about the journey so far. We started in 2006, and we started with this. Any idea what that is? Sorry?
Your financial target.
Very good, the financial target. Some people sometimes say my salary, but unfortunately that is not true. So it's $1 billion, and $1 billion is a big number. But of course everything is relative, so it's maybe important to also tell you that DSM is a company that at that point in time was around 8 to 10 billion. We have a lot of portfolio changes, so let's say for argument's sake that the company is about 10 billion. So the question was, can you in the next 5 years generate from innovation $1 billion additional sales? Now that was a good question, but actually we had no clue what that meant because we had never been measuring innovation sales at that moment. So we first had to, what I now call build the machine, and that is how do you actually measure innovation and how do you stimulate it and how do you increase the speed if necessary, but we felt it was necessary. Now, okay, measure. So how do you measure? Of course, we had definitions. How long do you take it? What counts? What does not count? Is every new SKU something? And so on. And in the end, we arrived at a definition that we see as our innovation sales definition. And it turned out that in the 5 years before this journey, we did something between 500 and 600 million. So basically, the question was, can you please increase the speed of innovation by a factor of 2 in the coming 5 years? And of course, you also need to know where you are going. So we were defining for each business group where to go and more or less how much they should contribute to that target of 1 billion. And since we were an operational excellence company, we also realized we needed to learn a lot. So we did benchmarking, best practice analysis, and so on. And we did also internally a search, how good are we actually at this? And together with McKinsey, we made what we call an innovation diagnostic. And on many different aspects of the innovation process, we were figuring out how good are we at this. And that starts already with, do you have, as a business group, for instance, an innovation strategy? Do you have aspirations? How well do you work together? Do you put the right people in the teams? What is the profile of these people? How well can you collaborate with people? And so on and so on. How do you do project management, portfolio? And then we benchmarked internally, and we benchmarked externally at that point in time with 27 other companies. And we came to the conclusion that we were scoring below the industry average. Now, disappointing, but not surprising if you see our history. And we were then figuring out how can we improve on this, who can we learn from? Can we learn internally? Because, of course, there are people that are very good at certain things, so you can then learn internally. But many things we were also bringing in from the outside. For instance, we were very bad at commercialization and launch. Now, the whole chemical industry is really not very good at that, so we had to look at really other types of industries that are very good at commercialization and launch, and we built a new group and even a sort of a, how do you say that, a practice to help people in project management to already from the beginning take the launch into account and see if you could accelerate it. And that's how we went about improving everything. We took the top 50 projects, the owners, the directors, and the key people, and we were putting them in what we now call an innovation learning curriculum. And we taught them to become better innovators, using external staff from business schools, but also faculty from other companies. And we have tried to build over the years a community of innovators that are better at doing the whole process of innovation. And the other thing is that we went away from just looking at interesting ideas. Because when we made the analysis in the beginning, it turned out that we had hundreds of interesting ideas, and we had put them in something that we called corporate new business development. And there were all sorts of things in there, pet projects of managing board members, projects that were abandoned by the business groups, but somebody found them interesting and found a way to get money and so on. But they were actually not strategically consistent, and they also were by themselves interesting, but maybe with an outlook for 10 or 30 or 50 million, not really moving the needle. With these things, you will never get to 1 billion because they all need to be successful and they are scattered. And especially if you want to go into a new area, you need to build the whole business system and it needs to have a certain size. So it took a couple of years before it dawned on us that in our incubator we should look at things that are really substantial. And what we now see as substantial is that it should be at least 250 million, preferably 500 million. Of course, that also means that you have less stuff that you can work on, but what you are working on is then meaningful. What we also have stepped up is our corporate venturing, and we have also started to do it very differently. In the beginning, we were looking through funds at a lot of deal flow. Once in a while, we did a strategic investment, and actually that's the only thing we do now at the moment. We look at about 500 companies per year, and we only invest in 5 or 6. So it is a great scouting mechanism, but not necessarily something that will bring you the next thing. Those 5 or 6 are now, I think, much better chosen than in the past. But in the beginning, we have made a lot of mistakes, I would say. But even if you take that into account, financially, this is a free tool. We have more or less gotten back from all those investments as much as we have put in, and that even takes into account all the mistakes of the beginning. I think going forward is also financially an attractive thing, but for us, strategically, it is the most important tool of the venturing is the scouting and especially the choosing. And maybe even more, the choosing what not to do in a new field than what to do. Nevertheless, we have acquired a couple of those companies, and I think going forward we will indeed absorb a few more of those, helping to accelerate the speed of innovation in the areas that we have chosen. What remains important is the basis of the company. We have a company that is founded on science. Our tagline is Bright Science, Brighter Living. And these competences in different compositions carry basically the innovation in the different business groups that we have. So, the 1 billion. We ended up at 1.3 after 5 years. So we surpassed the target. We more than doubled the innovation speed. And I think it was greatly helped by the fact that during the crisis in 2008 and 2009, our managing board took a very courageous decision by, contrary to most companies, not cutting in R&D and innovation during the crisis. And that helped us continue the momentum and deliver new products that our customers very much valued to distinguish themselves from their competition. And that is also, I think, the reason why we surpassed the target in 2010. Of course, then there was a new strategy round. That's the one we're currently in, running till the end of this year. And they said, well, you did great. Please double the output now. And also the experiment with what we call the EBAs, the emerging business areas, we were able to continue. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So we got the new ambition, the current ambition, end of this year, have innovation sales of 20% at the end of this year of the turnover of our company. Now, we also discovered that only steering on output is not clever, because some of our business groups generated a lot of sales, but not with great margins. And of course, it's a little bit stupid just to create market share and turnover, but at margins that are equal or lower than your running business. So there is an additional measure now, and that is that you have to generate gross margins that are at least 5% better than your running business. And at the moment, we are at around 7%. Also, in this whole benchmark with McKinsey, we said we have to be good at the practice and also to increase the speed further. So let's see if we can end up in the top quartile of that McKinsey benchmark. And can we, by 2020, generate new business outside the scope of the current businesses through our EBAs? And I will illustrate those to you. Now, that is a very challenging target, because that started at 0 in 2006. because that was where we started to clean up this incubator with all those nice and small ideas and to identify fields where we wanted to grow business. And the first business that we chose already in 2006 was biomedical. We started with a group of 5 people, some ideas, some projects that came out of that portfolio as I described. But we said, let's start here with the end in mind. And this looks like an open innovation funnel. It actually is. But I would like to illustrate all the elements that we have used to create this new business for biomedical. Why did we choose biomedical? Well, if you look at the macro trends, people get older. Your body is probably designed to last for 40, 50 years. But we try to prolong that till, say, 80. And then your knees, your heart, everything starts to protest, of course, and needs to be repaired. So there is a growing market, and we have skills in the company, as I showed you, that could help. We know a lot about drugs, we know a lot about the human body, we know a lot about nutrition, we know a lot about materials. And we thought the combination would help us to identify fields where we could grow in this emerging market. But we also felt that we lacked a lot of skills, so we were looking outside to increase the speed. So at the front end of the funnel, next to internal projects, we have worked together in public-private partnerships. We have asked a lot of people that knew more about this field to help us find our way. We have licensed in technology. We have done 5 venturing investments in this field. We have now a joint venture with DuPont, one of our competitors in the materials field. And we acquired 2 companies, one in California in polymer technology and one close to Philadelphia, Kenzie Nash, in regenerative medicine. And now this group is around 700 people, growing very fast. Business is growing fast as we hoped and predicted, with very interesting margins. And I think in 1 or 2 years, maybe with 1 or 2 small acquisitions, this will be big enough to stand on its own feet and become another business group for DSM that no longer needs the protection of the innovation center. Because I think you really need to give a group like this what we call air cover for, well, this will be then up to 10 years, to come from nothing to something that is substantial. Another thing that started in this strategy period, so in 2011, is what we call DSM Advanced Services. Building on nanotechnology that actually came from an experiment we did in picture frames to make them anti-reflective, because most picture frames are very good to see if your hair is well done, but the picture behind it is difficult to see. And we have developed a coating, very thin coating, that makes it anti-reflective. But we came to the conclusion, like one of those things from the portfolio, that it is a totally uninteresting market. You will never get rich from picture frames. But the solar business is a business that is really exploding. And every % of energy that you save or get extra out of the panel is, of course, is great. And this coating, the original coating that we developed, gives 4% more output from a solar panel. So that is great. And we therefore have expanded that first and then looked at what can we do more. And that's why we decided to make an EBA, an emerging business area, because we felt that there are so many things in a solar panel that can be improved through our material technology, that this will be a business of 250, 500 million euro. Because there's a backsheet, there is encapsulants, there's the wafer, we are here tweaking the glass. There's so many things in these solar panels that can still be helped by material science to improve, that we feel that we can actually double the output over time of a solar panel. So that's why we chose this field. And again, here we are working not only with our own technology, but bringing in technology from the external world. And finally, we have a group that is really starting again from our own technology in biotechnology, but aiming at renewable energy and renewable chemicals, so going away from oil and gas as a basis for products, but going to bio-based products. And instead of taking oil from the ground and burning it and adding CO2 to the air, What we are doing is taking CO2, making plants, make fuel, and give the CO2 back to the air and make plants again, so the circular economy. And last year in September, we have opened our first large-scale factory that is working on corn stover. So the first generation biofuels in this country are coming from corn kernels, the starch that is in the kernels, stuff that you can eat, or you can give to animals to eat. And the rest of the plant we throw away. What we do is we take the stuff that we throw away and make fuel out of that. Now, it's a complicated process. You need to treat it, because, you need to digest it with enzymes, you need to have special yeast to use the C5 sugars and so on, but all of that has been taken care of. And we've opened the first factory in Emmetsburg in Iowa that will produce about 25 million gallons per year. And we hope that this will actually be, together with our colleagues in other companies that are trying to do the same, the emergence of a completely new era in which we go away from fossil fuels and get to renewable fuels. And in the middle, by the way, you see the King of the Netherlands, together with the CEO of Poet, our partner, and our own CEO. So even the King thought it was important enough to travel to the US to open up the company. And I think it is a critical sign in general that more and more politicians and people that run countries, that we have to do something about the planet. I really hope that more people will follow this. I was at the World Economic Forum earlier this year. I think it's clear that it's going really bad with our climate. And I really hope that in Paris we will come to carbon pricing, because this industry is at the moment really, I think, suffering. Oil price is low. Technology is very new, very expensive, and will not get off the ground unless people really feel that we should go to renewable fuels and that we stop warming the earth. And I think we have the tools now to do it. We should just make sure that we become successful. So, talking again about how we are going to go forward. One of the things you said about strategy is how to make sure that you work on the long term. This is also, you could say, a 2x2 matrix. When we look at more details, we actually use this as a 4x4 matrix. But it is slightly different in that the x-axis is not technology in our case. It is about how new that business is to DSM. And the left blue boxes are about renewing and growing our positions. So that says something, the top blue box says something about emerging and growing markets. And the bottom is mature and declining markets where we are in. On the right-hand side, we have new markets to DSM, and even new to the world sometimes. That's why it's a 4x4 in detail. And the key is, of course, to also work on the red box. And I think we should always work on the red box, even in bad times. And we have agreed in the company to spend about 25% of our R&D and innovation money in the red box. We aim to do about 50% in the renew and grow box, and about 25% in the maintain and strengthen. And basically, you should stay away from the lower blue box, because it doesn't make sense to spend a lot of your innovation money in markets that are unknown to you and that are mature and declining. And this is how we also try to steer it in times when cash is small, or how do you say, tight. And the tendency then is, of course, to reduce the spending on the red box, because it's dangerous, it's scary, people are nervous about it, and at least in our company. That box is discussed at least 3 times as often as the blue box, where people feel more comfortable with the innovation that we are doing there. I think I was asked to say a little bit about the lessons that we have learned over the last couple of years. This one I would like to use to say, stay the course. It's important, stay the course strategically, but also stay the course when times are bad. Because we have at least some data points that show us that it pays off to stay the course. that innovation generates businesses with higher margins than the running business, that innovation helps us to create new businesses that renew the company and also take care of the sustainability of the company long after we are gone as the guys that are managing the company at the moment. Of course, this will happen. You will have tight cash or budget cuts or whatever. I think the lesson that we have learned there is that you should not then, what we call cheese slicing, do cheese slicing. Do a little bit less of everything. It's much, much better to then choose things that you really want to pursue and forget about other things. Because basically, if you do cheese slicing, you do everything suboptimally. And that is never a good idea. It feels uncomfortable because you have to stop things, but in the end, it's better. Then, of course, about mindset, I think it's important to select your people, and then you have to have different people for different purposes. In the red box, as I indicated, it is very good that you have people that are on the right-hand side of the slide, that feel that everything is possible and that we are able to do things. Because there are already a whole bunch of people in the company that say that these things are impossible and that we are unable to do it. And I think that determines very much who you are placing where. There are simply people that are nervous in taking risk, and there are people that do not take disappointments very well. And you will have a lot of disappointments the more radical you do, and especially in new markets that you don't know. That's why you end up with this. A big graveyard. We have an enormous graveyard. I think the good thing about this graveyard is that you should talk about it. You should talk about things that went wrong and what you can learn from it. Hopefully to do the next project better and find the best field to be in. One of the things I think that we learn continuously is that you need external people to challenge your plans. We have great people, wonderful scientists, great people in marketing, but the most things that failed were actually because we did not check our value proposition well enough with the potential market, the potential customers. And sometimes even years after the development, and we have had so many things that were looking beautiful, in the end there was something in the customer system that prevented it from being adopted in the market. So the sooner you do that, the better it is. And then the question about capturing value, that is also something interesting, because it is much easier to demonstrate the value of innovation in the blue box in your running business. You can talk about EBITDA, because you generate products that make profit. But how can you demonstrate value in the red box when there is no market? The most extreme example on the slides that I showed you about the EBAs is the ethanol business. But we also have there, for instance, green chemicals like succinic acid. That market does not exist. We have now worked on it for 7, 8 years. We have spent huge amounts of money. What is the value of that business? And there are, of course, many people that say, well, you have spent now so much money and still you don't make any profit. True. The question is, for those fields, have you created value? And then the question is, how long will it take before you can capture it? And there are different ways to do it. And that's also the part where we are now experimenting at the moment. Can we find additional people that want to invest in those ventures to accelerate those markets and to help us expand those ideas further? Because it is, at a certain point in time, so big that also a company like DSM cannot afford to do it alone. But of course, that biofuels market could be a few billion. So there must be people that are interested in it, and we think we have found for different elements in that portfolio other people that will help us capture the value. And again, talking about mindset, I think this is necessary, and again, selecting your people is key. Especially, again, red box is not easy. But also in more traditional businesses, I still remember in the beginning when I was appointed as a Chief Innovation Officer, many of my colleagues said, why do we need a Chief Innovation Officer? I know how to do it. I've done it already for many years. And I think now we can say that we have demonstrated that it pays off to spend a lot of time on also increasing your skills. But it is a continuous battle for attention and a continuous battle for making sure that people take it seriously. And then it will definitely pay off, as we can now show. I think coming back to the transformation, I often use this slide. It's not the strongest of the species that survive nor the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change. I think that's true for animals and people, and is also true for companies. Thank you.